Hey everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome. Oh, let's see. Can you can you all hear me okay? I'm not sure that you can. It's not showing up on my side. Someone let me know if you can hear me all right on your end. Let me just double check everything on mine to make sure. Good afternoon. Just double check. You can hear me? Okay, great. On my end, it's not showing that there's any sound, but that's good. If you can hear me, then fantastic. That's all that really matters. Can everyone else hear me okay? Someone else give me like a yes, thumbs up. Just double checking. It looks like a couple of you can. If a couple of you can, then hopefully all of you can. So perfect. Okay, thank you, thank you. Strange on my end, it always like moves as like I talk and nothing today. So I'm glad you can hear me. But hello, it is the 10th of February. I know it's a Friday, which is a little different than we normally meet. Sorry for switching things up this week. I try to keep that consistent, but I had some stuff with my kids on Wednesday, so I had to move it back. The last week feels far away, but I'm glad that you were able to make it here with me today. For those of you who are here, thank you, thank you. So, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about some feedback from last week. We did have our first exam, so I want to talk about that and some of the APA formatting part one kind of stuff. I will give you the reminders for this week, so we'll go over what we have going on now and what is due. We kind of switch gears into more core materials this week, and so I think it starts to get a little bit more challenging from here, but hopefully, it will still be approachable and everyone will be okay. I will, of course, give you the extra credit question for this week, see if you have any questions for me, and then we will call it a day. So let's go ahead and head over to Canvas together. And if you're on here, we are in week 5, right? So we have made it through a fourth of the way of our class. The first 4 weeks, we took our first test. I want to talk a little bit about last week, which feels kind of far away at this point because it's Friday and it's almost the weekend, which is so exciting. But I want to talk just a little bit about last week before we move forward. So we were looking at APA formatting part 1, and we will be looking at a couple of different sections of APA formatting. So this one last week was kind of introducing everything. Where we'll go from here is we're going to talk about like cover pages and references, and then we'll talk about citing sources. We're going to build on that in parts 2 and 3 later in the semester. For the discussion last week, if we take a quick look at that, we were looking at when do we consider something plagiarism? And this is something that is a really important topic. It's way too easy to plagiarize, and oftentimes people do it unintentionally. But it's important to know when things are plagiarism or not. So there were 3 scenarios that I gave you, and basically, in short, it was yes, yes, no were the answers. So the first one is plagiarism. You kind of started everything off well, right, in the sense that you were finding articles in your topic, you're copying and pasting the most interesting parts. You listed the articles at your reference page, but you didn't put anything in quotes or provide any kind of parenthetical citations for the sources. I think that one's kind of an easy example of plagiarism. Really important, obviously, to put things in quotes, give it a page number, give it the proper citation. The second scenario, you were given an assignment to research 10 different phobias and write a paragraph explaining each one. When you're standing in line, you hear the person behind you tell her friend, my sister's a psychologist, I just emailed her and she wrote back with the answers. So yes, this would be plagiarism. Turning in answers representing your sister's work as your own would definitely be copying and plagiarizing. The last one was a little bit tricky and started just hopefully getting you thinking about it. The third one, you receive your assignment for a class and realize that you can write your paper on the same topic that you wrote for another class last semester. Because of the requirements of the assignment, the focus of the paper will be different, but you can use many of the same sources that you had read just 2 months ago. So for this one, the answer is that no, this would not be plagiarism. Using the same sources to support your information does not constitute plagiarism. If you were to incorporate sections of your old paper into your new one without citing the previous paper, then yes, you would be committing what's called self-plagiarism by not acknowledging your earlier work, but just using those sources would not be plagiarism. So hopefully that was kind of something interesting to think about. Again, this one was a lot about what is APA, why do we use it, what is plagiarism and what isn't, and we'll build on that from here. Biggest reason people lost points was either giving the wrong answers or just not quite elaborating enough. If you find that you're not getting full points on these discussions, make sure that you're really elaborating. If it helps to think about them more as like a mini paper, do that. But make sure you're always giving me lots, showing off your knowledge, understanding, and comprehension. So that was the discussion for last week. And then we also had exam number 1. And I hope that you are feeling pretty good about the exam. Overall, as a class, you should be feeling pretty good. So just a few statistics, and I gave this to you in the email I sent out on Monday. The average score on the exam was 93%. That is an A. The average score was an A. That's fantastic. The highest score was 100%. The low was a 72%. And the average amount of time people took was about 41 minutes out of the hour that you had possible. So what that tells me is a lot of you had plenty of time. You were prepared, you were organized, and you did well. You're understanding the materials. I felt like a proud parent seeing those scores, so very nicely done. I would really encourage you to use the exams as a learning opportunity. And I kind of feel like a broken record with this. I say it in every class, but it's true every time. Use the exam as an opportunity to either continue doing what you're doing, or maybe change things up if you're not happy. So with the exam, and this is something that you're going to be kind of reflecting on this week to help you with that, if you didn't score as well as you would have liked, we have 3 more tests. Change it up. Now's a great time to change it up. Study differently, study more, right? Maybe study each chapter at a time rather than doing it all at once. But change things up if you wish you had done a little bit better. If you didn't do the study guide, do it next time. I bet that would really help. I'm imagining most of you did the study guide. I don't know, did you do the study guide? Be honest with me. It's okay if you didn't, but you could put it in the comments if you want. If you did the study guide, I imagine that helped you incredibly. It was everything that you needed to know. So just take the time to think about your score, and if you did well, keep doing the same thing. If you wish you had done a little bit better, switch it up. Now's a great time. You did the study guide. It was very helpful. That's great. My point with the study guide was to give you everything you needed to know so you could be successful. And in my experience, those who do it do wonderfully. Yes, it is an accumulation of the key terms for each chapter. I am so glad that you noticed that. So at the end of every single chapter, right? So like for last week, for example, in the lectures, what I do is I give you the key terms on the last page. And then the study guide is just all of these for the unit put together. Yes, I love that you noticed that. So what you could do is you could study each chapter as we go along, each week as we go along. And that's going to be something that's going to be helpful. Yep, you had already compiled the key terms. You had made your own. Look at, you made your own study guide. That is amazing and fantastic. I think that's great. So if you did wonderfully, keep it up, right? And a lot of you really did a fantastic job on the first exam. So I hope you're feeling good as we go into week number 5 and into this next unit. Are there any questions about anything from last week or this first unit before we talk about what's going on this week and move forward? Just to check in, any questions at all about anything so far, or any other thoughts, comments, anything about the exam? And then we'll move on. I'll wait just a second just to make sure, and then otherwise we'll move on to week number 5, which is our week that we are in now. We're almost done with week 5 because it's Friday. All right, I'm not seeing anything yet, so if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, this week we move on to Chapter 3, Part 1. Now, just like with Chapter 2, I have split this in half. Next week we'll do Chapter 3, Part 2. So definitely read Part 1 in the textbook. It's only about like 11, 12 pages. And if we click on this, what we're looking at this week is we're looking at 3 claims for validities, interrogation tools for consumers of research. So we're going to look at different types of claims this week: frequency, association, and causal claims. We're going to look at what are some of the appropriate questions for each of them and what are some of the validities that might correlate to those types of claims and what kind of research will support the claims that we're making. So topics like what are variables and what are the three different claims? Again, frequency, association, and causal. So we're getting into a little bit more of the core material. We've kind of been setting the stage with what is science versus what isn't, where do we get good information, what is APA. Now we're getting into like the types of research, the types of claims. We're going to get into experiments. So definitely kind of upping the ante just a little bit starting this week. Beyond the book, I have a little bit here about correlational research. This is a big topic this week, correlation. And so what I did is I went over a little bit about negative, positive, and zero correlations with some charts and things like that. Correlation does not imply causation. This is a phrase that if you go on in psychology, you have to have memorized, almost tattooed on yourself somewhere, right? Correlation does not imply causation. Just because two things are related to each other or have a relationship doesn't mean that they cause each other. There's third variable problems, there's directionality problems, there's a bunch of different things. So I made a video about correlation versus causation. I have some examples here and kind of a fun website. But that is a really big topic for this week. Identifying is something correlational or causal. And those are different types of claims that we can make. And then key terms in review, just like you pointed out, here are all the terms that you need to know from this first half of the chapter. And then we will build on it next week with the second half of chapter 3. So make sure that you read chapter 3, part 1 in the book, and then watch my lecture video, right? And I did go through and make each one of these. It's me lecturing to PowerPoint slides. Hopefully these are helpful. I tried to keep them like reasonably short, but the nice part about these is it's me giving you more information about the topic in addition to the book and in addition to the lecture. It's going to be stuff that's helpful on the exam. And then you obviously have a discussion this week, and then you have a little self-assessment, which I'll talk about in a moment. So let's look at the discussion first, and then we can look at the self-assessment. So discussion number 5, because we're in week 5. As always, watch my little brief introduction video. You're going to want to answer all of the questions that I have. Think about them as mini papers, elaborate. Again, if you're missing a point or two every week, give me more. And hopefully that will get you there. Don't forget the peer response, which is worth 2 points. So for this week, I have an article here that I'd like you to read. 8 ways that screens are ruining your family's lives. My kids would be very upset if I made them read this and then took away their screen time, right? Screen time is so important for all of us, right, with technology. But I have an article here I'd like you to read, so you can click here to read that. And then I want you to summarize the article in a couple of sentences. What are the conclusions? What are the findings, right? Give me a couple of sentences to summarize. And then I want you to think about the 3 types of claims that we talked about this week. And what type of claim is the author making in this article? Is it a frequency, association, or causal claim? And then is the author's claim accurate or justified? In other words, is the type of claim that they're making actually the correct type of claim according to your reading? Hint, if you're having trouble determining the type of claim for this article, think about whether the variables were measured or manipulated. Are they related, or can we determine cause? So oftentimes, and this is something I talked a lot about in the lecture for this week, people will make causal claims. They will say that X causes Y. But do they really cause each other? Did they manipulate anything, or did they just measure, right? So be thinking about, do the claims that the article make, are they the same types of claims that they actually can make based on what they did or didn't do? I want you to find 2 examples in the article of any kind of term or variable that should have had an operational definition. In other words, any term or variable that should have like a definition to it in order to be successfully measured. So if we're saying you're going to be successful because you did something, how are we defining success? How are we defining screens or screen time, right? So you're going to be thinking about terms in the article that you might need to define very clearly in order to successfully measure or evaluate them. And then I want you to think about potential third variables and or the directionality effect. How could any other variables or aspects of this article possibly be explained? Again, we're kind of moving a little bit deeper into our content this week. So hopefully you feel very comfortable. I think all the little videos I've made for you are going to help. But you're reading the article and then answering these questions about it. And that is discussion number 5 for this week. The other thing that you have this week, as I mentioned, is you have this little self-assessment. So if you click on this, this is where 5 points. Please be honest. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Be honest. If you're honest with yourself, that's the goal of this. I want you to take a moment to consider your progress and your grades and your approach to this class, and then answer the questions that are in here. So you have unlimited time. This is where 5 points, 5 questions. So you'll hit take survey. And then question 1, I'm doing my part to learn as much as possible. And then you pick an answer. On average, I've spent this much time completing and watching the lectures and reading the book and all sorts of that stuff. I consistently do the readings and turn my assignments in on time. What is your muddiest or most unclear point in the readings, modules, discussions, homework, and everything so far? And then thinking about your score on exam number 1, is there anything that you plan to do differently to be more successful on the next exam or as the course moves forward? So again, my hope with this is it causes you to pause for a minute, think about what you're doing, and is there anything you need to change? Okay, and maybe not. Maybe you're doing fantastically. A lot of you are. And so what you would say is, I'm going to keep doing the same stuff. Okay, so this is your opportunity to reflect on that. Again, it's worth 5 points, so please make sure you do that for this week. Are there any other questions about the stuff going on this week or any of the content or materials? I have a couple of reminders for you, but any questions at all for me at the moment? I'll give you the reminders while I'm waiting to see if you have anything. Okay, so our next Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, February 15th at 12:30 p.m. Okay, so that's when our next Twitch live stream will be. Next Wednesday, we'll go back to Wednesdays, 12:30, like usual. So back to our normal day and time. The other reminder that I want to give you, we are in week number 5. So what that means is a lot of you who subscribed for free with your Amazon Prime accounts, that is expiring or has expired. And I have noticed this on my end that instead of quite a few of you being subscribed, now it's only a handful of you. So what I would like to just put in the chat here, and I remind you of this every week, but it's probably more relevant right now. If you no longer have the little crown next to your name or the football cake next to your name, you may have lost your subscription just because it's only good for 30 days. So you need to take a couple of steps to renew it. It's really easy to renew. If you have never signed up, you still can do that. We have a lot of class left. So I again, really appreciate those of you who do this. It saves me more time than I can explain to you, and I really do appreciate that quite a bit. And so if you have had your subscription expire, what you're going to want to do is go onto Twitch, go to my Twitch channel. Now, I can't show you on my channel, so just like before, I'm going to show you on like a random one that I follow.
Beating
Football.
a P100 though? Is it really beating?
I'm like, oh, let's watch some video games, right? So I'm going to show you on a football channel really quickly that I follow. Perfect timing as we get close to the Super Bowl here. We'll talk about the Super Bowl in a minute. Let me show you this first. So if you're on my page, the Psyched with Setmire page, there's this little purple thing right here, this little purple drop down underneath the banner. If you click on that, it's going to bring up a page, and at the bottom you click on Use Prime Sub and then subscribe for free with Prime. And so if it says subscription not available yet, then you haven't been expired. But if it's there, you can renew for free for another month, and you'll just keep doing this throughout the course of the semester. And again, if you have never done this, you can go onto Canvas. If you scroll up here, I have the instructions right here on how to link your accounts. So if you're watching this later, remember the only way to get credit for watching this later is to be subscribed. Please don't pay for it. It should be free if you follow the instructions. If you're watching this live with me now, then you can obviously put your name in the chat. But thank you so much for those of you who have taken the time to do that. I will keep reminding you every week. But since we're at that 1 month and beyond mark, I wanted to show you how you can renew that if you do notice that you no longer have those things next to your name. So take a moment later today and figure that out if you can. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Otherwise, let me give you the extra credit question for today. Okay, so I'm going to put this here in the chat. This is the week number, can't talk and type, week number 5 Twitch extra credit question. Okay, so the question for you is what are two ways that a correlation can be portrayed or represented or communicated, we could say. What are two different ways that we can represent, communicate, portray a correlation and how strong it is, or and so on. So that is the extra credit question for this week. When you are ready, you can go over to Canvas, click on extra credit number 5 because we're in week 5. And then as usual, it opens up this spot where you click on start assignment. And then you can type your response in the box and hit submit. Get the little confetti burst and hot air balloons today. This is due by this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. But if you do it early and get it wrong, I will let you know. Sometimes this one confuses people. I'm looking for the two different ways that you can represent, portray, communicate, display a correlation. So you can just list them. You don't have to say any more than that. But make sure you get going on the materials for this week. Again, week number 5, we are looking at the first part of chapter 3, looking at those claims and validities. Then we're looking at this discussion number 5, self-assessment number 1, and if you would like, the optional Twitch extra credit. Okay, so I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Anyone rooting for a team in the Super Bowl? I'm a big Mahomes fan, so I'm rooting for the Chiefs. My partner is rooting for the food. We've talked about this already. I'm in it for the football and the food. She's just in it for the food. We always make like some kind of Mexican food, so I think we're doing fajitas and chips and salsa and guacamole. I could go for that right now. That sounds amazing. The commercials are always fun. We've got Rihanna for the Super Bowl halftime show. So hopefully we have a good game. We have some cool markers in this game. First time brothers are playing each other. First time we have 2 black quarterbacks. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for some food and some drinks and some good football. Last football of the season's a little sad, bittersweet, but I'm looking forward to it. So I don't know if anyone's rooting for someone or just rooting for the food, but I hope you have a wonderful weekend. If you're watching the Super Bowl, go Chiefs. And I will see you all next Wednesday at our normal day and time for our next Twitch live stream. So I'm going to minimize my video, but I will hang out for a little while. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, get going on the stuff for this week, right? And I will hope to see you all next week. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go Chiefs, go Mahomes. Thank you as well. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. It feels like spring today. It's all warm, though it's going to cool off a little bit as well, I suppose. And I am still here. As I said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I would be happy to answer them. And I am still here. Again, just to mention, I am still here if you have any questions. Otherwise, feel free to email me if you think of something a little bit later on.